Hello everybody, Bart here, back from Oshkosh, and a quick review of my new gadget, or I should say a very important instrument in the A36, namely the Insight G3 engine analyzer. I've been hampering enough, I think, about the importance of having an engine analyzer, and if you remember my prior video, I used to have an factory single probe EGT gauge right in this spot, and I pulled the trigger and bought a G3 engine monitor. I decided to do this review very simply because there weren't any on YouTube. There's some reviews in the magazines, in the pilot magazines, but I haven't seen anything in on YouTube, so hopefully you will find it helpful, and I will tell you why I bought it and some of the drawbacks of this. Try to make it as unbiased. First of all, the positioning. Some people will say, Bart, why haven't you moved it closer to the pilot view? And maybe I'll regret it for right now. I don't think it's a big deal. I was toying with an idea of maybe moving it where the clock is, or moving it under the clock. There's an adapter they sell for 90 bucks, but I'm gonna put my backup electric A-Hars in this larger opening, the 3 1/4 opening. So I am stuck with this position, and I really don't mind it. This is pretty much kind of view from the pilot seat. I have a really reasonably good eyes. I don't wear any corrective lenses or anything, not yet at least, so to me this is just fine. Couple things that I would have done differently if I were Insight's listening. Move this page to the right, like on the G4, because here the manifold air pressure gauge or indication is getting a little obstructed. But again, I do have the factory one, manifold pressure, so I really don't pay that much attention to it. Mainly I'm watching the bars. So let's just go through it. This is a G3, which means it has all of the sensors, and the sensors that it comes with is the manifold air pressure, fuel flow, you see gallons per hour right there, voltage, I have it on external battery, that's why it's reading 25 volts, engine RPM, oil pressure, and outside air temperature. You might wonder why there isn't an oil temperature displayed here, and that would be a good point. For whatever reason, oil temperature is buried in some of the other screens, which I'll show you. And I wish you could get those, you could get to configure one of those 6 indications to be whatever you want, but they're preset from the factory. So that's, I would say, a con of this thing. So there's many pros, but I'm just gonna be unbiased with you and tell you what I think the cons are. You know, I don't really care about the outside air temperature, for instance, because Miss Beach gave me a real fancy gauge like this, but I would rather not rely on the factory oil temperature and have the one displayed in place of the outside temperature, just as an example. But that's how it is. It comes with an SD data card, and that's highly useful. That's one of the reasons I bought it. Because, why? Because I take it out and I can put it on my laptop and analyze it. You can upload it to the Savvy, whatever, and you can analyze the graphs, and it's very easy. It's like an Excel. It's a CSV file, so it's really easy to analyze. So that was one reason. Have to plug in the card or do some, you know, what do you call it? You don't have to really worry about how to download the data. Just pop the card and you're ready to go. The second thing, well, I'll just go through the pages real quick. First page you will go into, if I'm just clicking on it. Did you notice I did 2 clicks, by the way? That's, some people complain about it. I talked to Insight at Oshkosh, and they said that they did it on purpose, so you have to do click, you know, and then it just scrolls 1 page as opposed to on single click. I guess they didn't want that thing to just be kind of scrolling haphazardly. You know, the encoders could have been a little stiffer, like the ones on the Garmin, right? So you really need to take some pressure to move them, but they're very light touch, so therefore probably is what they did their engineering work around. Okay, so that's another area to think about. But let's get into the good stuff, because there's plenty of it. I like this screen, the probe diagnostics screen. Basically it gives you the resistance of EGT and CHT probes, and you can right off the bat tell whether you might have a broken or bogus reading on the probes, and that's very important to check on the pre-flight takeoff, or I don't know, whenever, and you should not have a difference, as you see, more than 20 ohms. So 20 ohms would be, high resistance, or the difference 10 ohms between the probes, which would basically say that those readings would be suspect. So this was an important feature. This Egt variation is also very important, I would think, especially if you're not going to plan on analyzing your SD data. And even if you do, you might want to have it displayed like this in flight, because basically what it shows you is it's computing an Egt variation in Fahrenheit between the steady state. So in theory, if everything is leaned out, you have your engine set up and you cruise flight, the EGTs should be flatlined. But if you start seeing spikes or some kind of data that doesn't look, it's not constant, then you might be having a problem with your exhaust valve, or something else might be happening. So Insights basically says that you should probably have this in this kind of a mode. It performs some averaging, I'm assuming, and have it in this mode while you're flying. So if there's an issue, you can immediately look at it, because it will start showing up. Alternatively, you take your SD card and you analyze it post-flight. This is the vibration spectrum. I cannot show anything here because RPM is required. It's gonna start showing you some bogus data, but basically it's like a fast. If you know what a fast Fourier transform is, it's basically showing you this. It's showing you the engine, the fundamental harmonic of the propeller mainly, the L1X, and the harmonics. And the y-axis is the magnitude of these vibrations expressed in decibels. So it's using an accelerometer that's mounted right on the prop hub. Maybe I'll show it to you in a little bit. And it's basically showing whether you have any issues. Again, this would be something like, how can I use this? I guess you take a kind of snapshot of this, or mental snapshot at least, and then if you start seeing some vibrations, unusual vibrations, you know that something unusual is going on with your engine. It's not 100%, how can I say, proficient with this feature. I'm just getting started. These G-force measurements, again using an internal accelerometer, so you can maybe record if you have the plane being used in the club, or maybe you have it shared between the pilots. You can kind of see how it is being, how can I say it? You can see the quality of your fellow pilots. How's that? Because you'll be able to see the landing or the G-forces. Alright, now this one is another good one. Make sure I didn't skip through anything. This is just snapshot. So, okay, horsepower and fuel flow. So again, you can kind of see where you are as percentage of reach of peak, of lean of peak, fuel flow, and see your oil temperature. That's where you have to scroll to get the oil temperature. So as you can see, it is kind of buried in there. Several screens. This is an instrument that Insight sells, so this is not applicable. Configuration. Okay, let's spend a few minutes talking about that. If you listen to the advanced pilot seminars, guys, generally speaking, they're against this engine monitor, and the reason for that is there is no feature that is called normalization of the spectrum. And normalization, as I understand it, is a feature that you can basically make the bars all the same height, regardless of the relative temperature, so that if there's something happens that's unusual, you'll see the bar graph jumping at you. This one doesn't do that. So, obviously the height of the graph shows a temperature. Well, it shows at the temperature in Fahrenheit, and they're all relative to one another, right? So, the higher the bar graph, the higher the temperature, and there's no way to equalize them if you were to normalize them, as the other guys call it. Instead, they give you this kind of concept of inflection, basically showing how sensitive should these bar graphs be to the temperature changes. Clearly, if you are below, say, 1100, or in this case 1150 F, you really don't care how accurate the bar graph is. And the reason for that is you see those temperatures mostly at idle, right, or taxi. But at flight, above 1850, you want to have a pretty good resolution of these bar graphs. So therefore, it devotes fewer pixels, if you will, to the low temperatures, and or temperatures below 1150, and gives you more resolution above. Hopefully that makes sense. And then it maxes out 1550. So that's how this works. You like it or you don't like it, but that's how it works. The another screen is fuel totalization. So this basically is a fuel totalizer. It works with your, in my case, I have the Shaden factory fuel flow gauge. And if you are looking for the K factor, which you have to set it up, it's 85,000. So just so you know, 85,000. And that's back to the main screen. I probably should have started there. But what do we see here? The bottom figures, or the green ones are the CHDs. The white ones are EGTs. And then I'll take a few snapshots and I'll post it here in the video so you can kind of see how it looks in flight. But basically, you know, the bars just get progressively higher. And when you go in lean, it'll basically give you a letter L and then the amount of lean of peak. So to me, I think this is super intuitive and I think it works super well. I don't need the normalization feature because basically I want to know how far lean I am. I'm going to kind of remember how this looks. If you have gamies, you know, that's all going to be pretty much the same. Fuel flows are going to be pretty similar, and therefore from there you're just going to be looking for some spikes, or maybe you scroll to that EGT screen and then you start looking for this thing going haywire. So that's how I think about it. To me, normalization actually is counterintuitive. I don't really. Anyway, this is kind of how I think about it. I'm thinking like the inside guys, I guess. It will show you the fuel flow also per injector, per cylinder, and obviously if you go lean, it'll be white. The box will say L, so L20 would say lean 20, and then R would mean rich, and it will be blue, magenta. And then with this, you can adjust the bar height. If you click it twice, you can adjust with the threshold. So it'll actually turn white, the box will turn solid white if it's more than 20 degrees lean of peak. So you can kind of set how lean of peak you want to be setting everything. So to me, it's dirt simple and and very intuitive. Okay, but again, seems to be reading Beach Talk that advanced pilot guys not too fond of this kind of a concept. They really like the normalization feature. So there you have it. Costs. This thing cost me about $3,000. I bought it with a Oshkosh promotion, or there was actually one before that, 20% off. So I get a very good deal on it, I would think. Installation time. Don't get fooled. I mean, there's still quite a little bit of work as far as wire routing and everything. Maybe I'll show you that, how this looks, and I kind of show you the sensors. But plan at least 20 hours. This is what I charge. So 20 hours of installation. So about $5,000 all in all for this. Let me turn this off, and I'll go outside and show you some of the you know, how the wiring looks like and everything. But it'll take about 20 hours for a single engine install. And you know, I think it's pretty straightforward. Obviously I didn't do it, but it's not something that they're gonna be able to do in a few hours. So basically what you do, let's start with that. You pick up the data from your fuel flow gauge for fuel totalization. You see that vibration sensor over there mounted on the spine, on the bolt. Tach signal, they had a little bit of trouble, but it basically picked the tach from the magneto wires. It's basically sensing, you know, when it sparks, and that's how you get it. And then of course, you know, these are your EGT probes, CHD probes, 3 per cylinder. And then what you do, open up the other side, you shoot across the engine compartment. I think the guys here at Metro did a nice job installing it. Pretty clean installation. You shoot across the engine firewall, and then you come in through here, meet up with the 3 other cylinders, and they actually use an existing hole that they maybe just enlarge it just a little bit, put a grommet around it and everything to go into the engine the pilot compartment, if you will. And then over there you see your oil pressure gauge, and then your air temperature is in the air box actually, so I cannot show you that. And I also cannot show you oil pressure because it's underneath the prop. There's a special port for it, and definitely do not put it right here under the cooler. there's been at least one that I know of incident where the guy lost an engine because they put a probe in there. I don't think it was related to the engine analyzer installation, but anyway, they tell you very clearly that their probe for all temperature, it needs to be underneath the prop. There's a port for it, not by the cooler, and that's how the wiring. So you can see there's a fair amount of, you know, relatively tedious looming and, you know, installation and zip tying and all that to make it look nice and presentable. And, you know, you work in relatively tight quarters, especially if the engine's been already installed in the airplane. So yeah, 20 hours I think is what you should budget on. If anybody says they can do it faster, you wonder about the quality of work. So there you have it. I hope that you enjoyed it. I will show you some pictures of what I was able to do it with this analyzer. Right after I got this analyzer, I looked at this gammy spread and find out that it's not that good. So at Oshkosh, I pulled the trigger on some gam ejectors. The other thing I'll show you, I'll do another review of this. You're gonna start seeing your CHTs. It's not that great, especially number 2 and number 6 on the A36. Apparently, those are the ones that are problematic. So I also bought from Gammy. They sell a number 2 and number 6 kit, and I'll show you real briefly what that entails. Number 6 gets warm, and their kit allows you to drill a hole in here and gets more air into number 6. And number 2 gets hot because the air just kind of bypasses the cylinder and goes into the cooler. So the kit that they have, it's actually, I believe it's from the 36 TC. I don't quote me on it. Somebody mentioned that. It's actually, I think, a beach part with some, you know, obviously STC that basically has like a scoop here, you know, right here, and that picks up more air and routes it around the cylinder so it's not so hot. Mine were, number 2 in climb was going over 400 F, which is not good. And yeah, that's not good. And then number 6, once you get it leaned out, is going into 380s and higher. So what's another $900, right? Especially at Oshkosh. Thank God my wife wasn't with me. This is how it looks. See how it's got that scoop? They have it displayed correctly? No, actually, I'm sorry. This is actually on the bottom. This is the scoop. This unpainted part, because it's kind of mounted like this. And do you see this? This seals it against the oil cooler, so the whole thing is routing the air right around the cylinder. I think that's kind of how it fits. Yeah. And then the one for the front is a lot cheaper because there's not much to it. Just a kind of a hole and a tube. Yeah. So I'm now waiting. My annual's coming up, so I'm gonna have them install it. I'm gonna have the mechanic install it, because, you know, once you get the Insight or any kind of engine analyzer, now you're gonna start uncovering some issues. I'm not gonna say issues, but you're gonna start seeing that your engine might not be running as well as you thought, despite, you know, having good baffling or whatever. And the other cylinders, I gotta tell you, especially this bank, you know, 1, 3, and 5s, man, those are 1, 3, and 5s. They are running pretty cool, even in climb and everything with this. And somebody can say, well, your baffle is screwed up. No, actually, it's fine. I checked it. But anyway, these are fine. They're all like 350s and below, even in climb. But the other side, especially number 2, man, it was getting up there. It was about 400. And I noticed that before when I was flying, so I was always, you know, judicious with my power and everything. But now I really know. I don't want to abuse this engine. So it's got 100 hours only now. So it's I think appropriate that I get this remedied now that I'm aware of the problem. But anyway, so again, this is what I uncovered. Hopefully this again was helpful to you. Appreciate your comments and your suggestions. I apologize for any small mistakes or just kind of quick and dirty, but I've been winging it all my life. There's no change. There's no reason why I should be changing it right now. So enjoy it. Thank you. See you next time.